What now? I am Precious Amayu. Now let's start here in Africa, where the 39th ordinary session of the African Union Assembly concluded yesterday at the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, following 2 days of high-level deliberations by African heads of state and government. The session marked the handover of the AU chairpersonship from President Manuel Lourenço of Angola to President Evariste Ndayishimiye of Burundi for 2026. Discussions focused on peace and security, institutional reforms, continental development priorities, and Africa's role in global governance. Leaders reaffirmed their commitment to strengthen the African standby force and push for equitable representation at the UN Security Council. The Assembly also highlighted progress on the African Continental Free Trade Area, the agriculture transformation, and youth and women empowerment as drivers of Africa's growth. Historical justice and international solidarity, including support for Palestine, were also emphasized.
We see it is that the greatest constraint to political transition in the country is the lack of political will by the stakeholders to comprehensively implement the revitalized agreement. This is why this committee should continue encouraging all South Sudanese stakeholders, particularly the current leadership of the transition government, to set aside their personal interests, place the interests of their country above all, and redouble efforts towards achieving the objectives of the transition.
Call on all parties to recommit to its letter of spirit to designate at this summit a lead mediator, either a former head of states or a delegate sitting head of states from the region under IGAD's auspices.
Peaceful and prosperous country, and elections alone will not guarantee lasting peace. Firstly, a conducive political and security environment is vital, and it must be created.
And joining me now to discuss this is African Affairs analyst David Matsanga. Good to have you join us, Mr. Matsanga.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Madam Amayo. Thank you for inviting me to this show.
All right, so we've seen the conclusion of the 39th African Union Summit. I mean, what do you make of that, of the summit this year? Do you think it focused on priority issues on the continent?
Thank you very much. I was myself in Addis, although I don't attend because I have differences with the AU chairperson. Both of them, the previous one and this one. I've always said, and I still stand by my words, that African Union needs an overhaul. And one of the most outstanding things that came out, which I think was focused.
All right, Mr. Matsanga, allow me to just put you on hold for a second as we interrupt our lineup of news. Well, as we cross over now to Adamawa State, where the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is inaugurating some projects in Adamawa. We'll bring you that coverage now, but if you want to continue to watch this program, scan the QR code on the screen.
State House of Assembly, led by the Right Honorable Speaker, other state speakers here present, Secretary to the government of Adamawa State, and the Chief of Staff to the
Mr. Matsanga, apologies for that. Please continue with your line of thought on some of the areas that the African Union focused on, if you think they were priority areas.
One of the priority areas that I saw, which I am very happy with, is the reforms proposed by His Excellency President William Samoei Ruto of Kenya. Those are the reforms that were in my mind. Those were the reforms that were in my heart. Those are the reforms, Pan-Africanism. We are looking at a new Pan-Africanism organization
an African organization that can spearhead the foreign policy, a united Africa speaking with one voice. So those took me, I am happy with those reforms. That's what I took out, very, very significant, apart from change of, and another thing that came out was the outgoing chairperson, my dear brother from Angola. He stated something very significant about Africa, not whitewashing people who take over governments, then come and change uniform, from uniform to civilian, and then they are readmitted immediately. That one took me, that was a very good move that he made. Another thing that came out of this is the question of people knowing that African Union is actually an intensive care unit. We saw that they cannot solve anything on their own. There is no Africanness for Africa with Africa. There is African Union looking for somebody to help to solve the difficult problems of Sudan. Sudan came out painfully. And that
Mr. Matanga, I will get to, apologies for butting, but I will get to Sudan and DR Congo and all of the wars we're seeing, even South Sudan, some of the conflicts we're seeing on the continent. But I want to stay on the issue of the reforms, because you seem quite optimistic about, those proposals made by President Ruto. How confident are you that the African Union will implement those reforms? It is not the first time we're hearing about reforms being proposed at that level.
You are right. Kagame did very good reforms, but they ended up in archives. We lost. I hope these ones are not going to end up in archives. I hope these ones will not put in archives. I hope this one will be used to make African Union better. And therefore, for the first time, I could see very many people have taken my message, have said, I think David is correct. I've been telling the world that we are captured. AU is captured. Some non-state parties from outside come and dictate to us what we should do and not do. Another problem that I came out is the amount of corruption, nepotism. For example, there are so many places in Africa where there is no data. Your place, for example, if you ask AU, how many people have been abducted? They don't know. There's no data on Nigeria. There's no data on Cameroon. There's no data in every part. So these are some of the things that came out for me in my hotel when I was watching live and with my people inside who were giving me all the inside information that I needed.
Mr. Matanga, let's talk about what you were already mentioning, Sudan. I mean, we have conflicts around this continent, a host of them. The Ethiopia-Eritrea conflict is still there, still brewing, not completely resolved. There is the Sudan war, there is the South Sudan conflict, the DRC conflict, and a host of others. And we've not seen, I mean, we didn't hear the African, of course there were condemnations and there were proposals made, but we did not see an outright involvement or a takeover of some of the peace talks being proposed by other countries. And then we did not also see a condemnation of foreign interference, especially by UAE and Saudi Arabia in the Horn of Africa. I mean, what's the implication of that?
I think the biggest monster against African Union is the United States of America. It plays a double standard. Let me tell you the conflict by conflict. Sudan, it took sides. It picked the side of Burhan, took them to Saudi Arabia. US works with Saudi Arabia and started condemning the other side. Yet both sides have made people have died on both sides. They have all killed people. So our biggest problem on Sudan remains the United States of America. Double standards, double tongue. It supports Burhani. Burhani is supported by USA in Jeddah. But the Americans don't want anybody in Africa to organize the RSF on a political, to go on table. You need an organized group to go on table. You need them to sit down and say what do they want, so that when a peace process comes, they go and sit on table. There's no way we are going to end this conflict without both generals sitting face to face and signing an agreement. End of the war. That's what we need. So when America sees you trying to tell RSF that, please, let's do this, come and organize, they put sanctions on you. So that is one of the problems we have. A monster in the house is the US. And it has brought that conflict also in Congo.
But Mr. Matsanga, isn't the US, I mean, a monster like you have called it, in this context, because the African Union has failed to step in and take charge of negotiations? If the African, I mean, they know Africa better than anybody else or any other country. Shouldn't that have been one of the proposals at that summit, an outright takeover of these mediations by other countries?
You are right, completely right. And that's why Dr. Matsanga here has been hated. I've been hated because I've been telling the African heads of state, I've been writing to them. I've met some of them. I've gone to some of the capital cities. I have gone everywhere telling them, look, we have a problem here. Our African Union, the chairman has become too big. He fights for photos with you. We had a secretary general. We need a secretariat, Madame Amayo. We need a secretariat that can work, not a chairman who fights for photo sessions with the presidents of Africa. And I've said it. It's true. You have a point there. We failed. African Union failed. That's why a peace process is taken over by Qatar. Qatar, of all countries in the Middle East, takes over our peace process. Yet Qatar knows exactly where these terrorists are. You know, this is not good for African Union. This is not good for the spirit of Organization of African Unity, which I knew, which I grew, I found it. It found me already on earth. And I'm not happy to see my union grabbed by a foreign non-state actors coming in, even if they are funding. Let's initiate the process. Then if we need help, call them. But they go and initiate the process. Then they call us to Washington, D.C. to sit there, shine before the cameras. Then after that, start condemning Kagame. Start putting sanctions on Kagame. Oh my God, what type of people are we in Africa, sure?
And let's talk about how important now, because one of the, just as a follow-up of what you just said, one of the proposals also being made was that the leaders reaffirmed their commitment to strengthen the African standby force, and that was primarily because of the fight against terrorism on the continent. But when you look at the trajectory of the world at the moment, even Europe is talking about a nuclear rearmament since the Cold War, for the first time since the Cold War. How important is it that African countries also now begin to build up military minds? When you put, I mean, just about 4 or 5 countries rank between 19th and 40th in terms of military power around the world. How important is it now that African countries begin to build their military might, especially as a deterrent to foreign interference?
I think you scored a point there. Deterrence is needed. You need a deterrence. But when you build up a force in Africa, the president of Congo does not want to recognize that force. The biggest problem of Congo is Tshisekedi himself, not Kagame. It's Tshisekedi. He has created over 240 fighting forces on the ground. So when African Union took the East African force, rapid deployment force, was taken to DRC Congo, Mr. Tshisekedi said, no, I don't want it. He did not want it. He refused it. And therefore, it came out. People died. You have seen how many people have died in Congo. He casted this force out. And he has now run to the mercantile capitalist guy, the guy of who sells democracy. If you give me oil, I give you arms. If you give me this, I will protect you. Trump. You see that? You are right. You have a point there.
Mr. Matanga, I mean, there's a lot to discuss when it comes to Africa. Sadly, there is never enough time. Thank you so much for your brilliant analysis, as always. African Affairs Analyst, David Matanga.
Yes, that is. Thank you very much, Madam Amayo, for inviting me, and continue inviting me all the time. I will stand firm and talk. Nyerere must be hearing me in the grave.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we'll take a